They told you that resilience means never breaking. That is the first lie you were sold, and it is the lie that keeps most people fragile for the rest of their lives. You have been trained to believe that a strong mind is a silent mind, that the person who does not cry, who does not flinch, who swallows every wound without a sound, is the one who wins. This is not strength. This is suppression, wearing the costume of strength, and suppression has a price. It compounds like interest on a debt you did not know you were taking out, and eventually, the bill arrives whether you are ready for it or not. Real resilience looks nothing like the stone-faced hero you were taught to admire. The mind that survives the longest is not the mind that feels nothing. It is the mind that feels everything, processes it, and returns to function anyway. That distinction is the entire foundation of what you are about to learn. And by the end of this protocol, you will understand exactly why the people who seem unbreakable are often the ones who let themselves break a little, on purpose, in controlled conditions, so the real blow never catches them unprepared. Here is the statement that will make some of you angry. Avoiding difficulty does not protect your mind, it weakens it. Every time you route around a hard conversation, every time you retreat from a conflict, instead of standing inside it, you are not saving your strength. You are proving to your own nervous system that you cannot handle exposure, and your nervous system believes you. This is how the architecture of confidence actually gets built, and if you have spent years avoiding friction, you have been training yourself to expect defeat. Sit with that for a moment, because we are about to dismantle it. Your brain is not a fixed weapon you were issued at birth. It is a weapon you forge. The part of your mind responsible for decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, and the part responsible for raw emotional alarm, the amygdala, are in constant negotiation every time you face a threat. In an untrained mind, the alarm wins. Panic floods the system before logic has a chance to speak. In a trained mind, the negotiation looks completely different. The decision-making center stays online even while the alarm is ringing, and that is the entire difference between someone who collapses under pressure and someone who moves through it with a flat, controlled expression while everyone around them is falling apart. This is not a personality trait you either have or do not have. It is a skill built through repeated, deliberate exposure to manageable stress, the same way a blade is not born sharp but is made sharp through friction. This is where most people make their first fatal mistake, and it is the mistake we will correct right now, in 3 phases. A hard conversation, a confrontation, a piece of criticism that stings. You leave the room, you change the subject, you numb it with distraction. Every time you do this, you confirm to your own mind that the discomfort was too dangerous to face. Stop doing this. The next time discomfort appears in front of you, in a conversation, in a conflict, in a moment where someone challenges you, stay in the room. Say this, out loud if you have to. I am going to stay here and finish this, because leaving teaches my mind the wrong lesson. You do not need to win the exchange. You only need to remain present through the entire duration of it. Presence, sustained through discomfort, is the raw material of psychological armor. There is no shortcut around this phase. Anyone who tells you there is one is selling you something that will not survive contact with reality. Phase 2 is the separation of feeling from function. This is the piece almost everyone gets wrong, because they think resilience means eliminating the emotion. It does not. You are allowed to feel the sting of an insult, the heat of anger, the ache of rejection. What you are not allowed to do is let that feeling operate the controls. Picture it this way. The emotion is a passenger in the vehicle. It is loud, it has opinions, it may even scream, but it does not get to touch the wheel. You do. When the feeling rises, name it internally, without drama. This is anger. This is fear. This is humiliation. And none of it is driving. Then continue speaking. Continue acting. Continue executing. Whatever you were already doing. Calmly, as if the passenger in the back seat had said nothing at all. This is basic behavioral physics. Whichever part of you stays at the wheel is the part that determines the outcome, regardless of how loud the passenger gets. This single separation, feeling in the back seat, function at the wheel, is the mechanism behind every person you have ever admired for staying calm under pressure. They were not numb. They were simply not letting the passenger drive. And this is exactly the kind of internal discipline that cannot be maintained alone, in isolation, without reinforcement. If this framework is landing for you, if you can already feel how differently you would have handled last week's confrontation with this in your hands, that is your signal to subscribe now, because every protocol on this channel is another layer added to the same armor, and armor built one piece at a time, consistently, is the only kind that actually holds when the real test arrives. Phase 3 is deliberate reconnection. Here is something almost nobody tells you about resilience. Isolation destroys it faster than any external attack ever could. You can survive enormous hardship, illness, loss, professional collapse, and still come out the other side intact, as long as you do not also convince yourself that you have to carry it entirely alone. The feeling of emotional isolation, the belief that no one would understand, that reaching out is weakness, that is the trap. It is not physical solitude that breaks people. Plenty of people function perfectly well alone in a room. It is the conviction that they are emotionally unreachable that erodes the foundation from underneath them. So the final phase of this protocol is simple, and it is non-negotiable. When the pressure is highest, you name it to one person you trust. Not everyone, not a crowd. One person, deliberately chosen, and you say something as direct as this: I am under more pressure than I am showing right now, and I need you to know that, not to fix it, just to know it. That single act keeps the exits open. It keeps the architecture of your mind connected to something outside itself, and connection, real connection, is what allows the structure to bend under load instead of shattering. Put the 3 phases together, and you have the full protocol. Stay in the room instead of escaping it. Separate the feeling from the function. Reconnect deliberately instead of disappearing into isolation. None of this requires you to become cold. None of this requires you to stop feeling. It requires you to stop confusing suppression with strength, and to start treating your mind the way you would treat any weapon worth trusting, maintained deliberately, tested under controlled pressure, never left untouched and expected to perform when it matters most. There is also a mindset shift underneath all 3 phases, and it is worth naming directly. The people who recover fastest from setbacks are not the people with the easiest lives. They are the people who believe, at a fundamental level, that effort changes outcomes. If you believe your mind is fixed, that you were simply born either tough or fragile, every setback becomes proof of a permanent verdict. If you believe instead that the mind is trained, every setback becomes data, nothing more, information to refine the next attempt. In behavioral psychology, this belief, that capability grows through effort rather than existing as a fixed trait, is treated as one of the strongest predictors of recovery. Adopt it as a working assumption even before you fully believe it, and the belief will catch up to the behavior. One more trap deserves to be named before we close, because it is the trap that ends careers, relationships, and entire identities. It is the belief that once you reach a certain level of toughness, you no longer need to reinforce it. This is false. Psychological armor is not forged once and worn forever. It corrodes without maintenance, exactly like physical strength does when training stops. The moment you assume you have already arrived, you stop practicing the 3 phases, and the very first real test after that will find the weak seam you never bothered to check. So carry this forward, not as a phrase to feel good about for 5 minutes, but as a working protocol you actually execute the next time pressure arrives. Stay in the room. Keep the feeling in the back seat. Reach out to the one person who needs to know. Do this consistently, and the version of you that used to collapse under confrontation will not recognize the version of you that remains standing, calm, and unreadable. Keep your armor maintained, keep your hand on the wheel, and never again let anyone find a string on you that they can pull.